Oh yeah, well, you can just see the proof's in the pudding. You know, people are thinking. They have time to think
Yeah.
and space to think, rather than thinking straight ahead. You know, what have I got to do today at work, or thinking
Yeah.
straight ahead, what assignments have I got to do? Rather than having to think that way, we've been able to think this way, that way, that
Yeah.
way, that way, and all around. And so that's why everyone's protesting, because people have had the space to be able to breathe and think, hey,
Mm,
maybe this isn't right.
mm,
Hey, maybe we can do things better.
mm.
Hey, maybe I have the capacity to, play a part in this change that I want to see in the world. And, protests all around the world, Santiago, or everywhere.
Yeah.
People, this disaffection has arose. Um, and I think that's a large part to play. And that's beautiful,
Yeah.
because obviously the world is not perfect. And there are solutions out there. It just
Mm,
takes a bit of creative thought, a bit of time to innovate, which I think by the nature of the world we live in, people just don't have that time. The stresses of work,
mm.
stresses of being financially stable, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
We don't have that time to think, and that's why I've really enjoyed this time, to reevaluate my life. What do I enjoy? What don't I enjoy?
Yeah.
What's going on in the world? What role do I have? Because the treadmill from school to university to work,
Doesn't stop.
it doesn't stop. And if you're running fast, it's hard to jump off. And,
Yeah.
as a new clubber playing scholar, you understand, that process of getting those applications in. You don't have much spare time.
Mm.
Um, so that's why I think with Indonesia, I really, really enjoyed spending time not being so productive for a bit. It took a while to adjust to the shock, of
Yeah.
not waking up at 7 a.m. and doing this and doing that. It was a lot to adjust to, and it took a couple of months. And I think that's why a lot of students, in particular, their mental health has taken a hit with the coronavirus, is because this change is so dramatic and it's so foreign to what we've been used to living.
Yeah. Like you'd think that if we had like a break or things would slow down, it would be great. Like we can all like just relax at home, do our Zoom lectures and like tutorials and just relax. But then like maybe like for some people who are just really conscientious and just need to have something to do all the time, it does take a hit. And I definitely
Mm,
agree with you. When I was in Indonesia, I think there was like a workshop that I attended where they said everything's a lot slower, like in the workplace.
yeah,
Everyone's like a lot more
like,
relaxed. Like, oh, you need to do this. Oh, it's right. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. It's like, no, we need to do
yeah,
this now. Um, yeah, I think definitely something for students to reflect on. I think being in Sydney, have you been in Sydney?
yeah. I've been to Sydney. Yeah,
Yeah, mate. Yeah. Well, like I think just being on the it's like the trajectory. I'm studying business. Like you just go out there after you graduate, you go into like a big company, work your way up, and then that's how it is. I think entrepreneurship is starting to grow and doing things that are outside of just that corporate sort of mindset. Like a lot more social impact
yeah.
is growing. So yeah, I think it's a good time to be a student, but also if you can get over this hump or get over this sort of like quarter life crisis, then I think there's good things ahead. There's good things ahead, definitely.
Absolutely, and there's opportunities for youth that are just popping up more and more as the trash have been taking themselves out comment by comment. It's as they realise that they're behind the eight ball, and we as people, as the checks and balances within society have said, this is not okay,
Yeah.
and this is what is okay. The people that are not in that box, they've been disposed of, and this is
Mm.
where the opportunities where young people like you and I can step into those roles and say, we have what it takes, and we're conscious of what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I did speak to Jordan. I'm not sure if you know Jordan.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Really funny guy. And like his story was just really inspirational as well. And one of the things I picked up from his conversation was like to put yourself in uncomfortable situations and to always be proactive. And I think that was one of his advice, especially as an Indigenous person himself. I think once you put yourself in like a position to succeed, you know, the opportunities are out there, you just get the ball rolling. And I think it was for him, it was hard because a lot of communities were really comfortable with, like, you know, the family, the groups, the friend groups, and they didn't reach out as much. I feel that for myself as well. I'm Vietnamese by ethnic heritage, but at Sydney, there's like a lot of international students, and like I'm at fault at that. I don't reach out to enough international students, and there's like so many people out there and opportunities out there that you just don't really know of unless you really take the steps. So yeah, that's just been my experience.
And those connections are, you know, they're there, but they're not strong, you know, unless you know, reach out to them, you know, until you have that conversation to you, like you did to me, you know, until you have that message on LinkedIn, you don't have that connection, and you never know what that connection could have flourished into unless you connect.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of guts, you know, uncomfortable, you know, reaching out to people, you know, having these conversations.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable because, you know, the fear of what could or couldn't be. But you know, that's one of the most important skills in life, I think, is, you know, figuring out ways that you can adjust that and figure out ways you associate that interaction with, rather than associating it only with fear. You know, associate that with, you know, excitement. You know, thinking about what this could turn into.
Yeah, like not to get into too deep, but like when you have a conversation, it's like I want to learn something, right? Like we're not just like shooting the breeze. We're just like talking nonsense. Like we actually want to learn from something, learn from each other. If we didn't think of a viewpoint, at least have it challenged, but like not also just like denounce it or like just reject it. And I think I'm just speaking to so many people that you have all these opinions and thoughts, and I'm just my mind just is amazed by like how many things I actually don't know. So that was one of the ways, or one of the reasons why I started this.
It seems more and more feasible, something that I'd want to do, because I just love chatting to people. You know, I love talking. I'm pretty good at just talking, so I can talk a bit too much sometimes. But you know, these conversations, all we know is what we see. You know, all we are is, you know, composition of all of our lived experiences, and you know, none of us are the same as the person next to us. So there's always something that someone else has to offer. Unless you have those conversations, you'll never ever know. And a lot of people, you know, they're too caught up in their, you know, their CV, their titles, you know, their accomplishments or what they haven't accomplished, to reach out to some people, I feel. And that narcissistic idea that you're better or worse than someone, I think, stops people from interacting with people, because of these tags that society has instilled with superiority or inferiority. But in reality, everyone's got something to offer.
Yeah. And no one's really perfect as well, even though how perfect their lives are. There's something wrong and something they're battling with, so don't judge them too quickly. That's what I learned.
And that, I think on that note, you know, that aspiration for perfection, I think I just watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, the TV series.
Hey.
You know, and every time I watch it, I learn something new, I think. And one of those episodes, it's about Aang, you know, and he in order to release his last chakra, he has to say, "I'm willing to let Katara go." He says, "Nah, why would I do that? You know, I'm happy with what I got now. You know, I'm happy with this love and this joy that she gives me. Why should I strive for perfection when this is enough?" You know, and I think this idea of striving for perfection is so detrimental to our well-being on a day-to-day, because we're constantly striving for something more and more, which is unattainable, rather than striving to be people who, you know, are balanced and, you know, have a broad range of perspectives and are open-minded, and just know how to live a life in which they are happy, you know, in which they can bring happiness and joy to other people. But this idea of perfection is just such a capitalistic idea based on, you know, what we see in these magazines or on TV, or which superstars are, you know, jammed all the way through our, you know, newsfeed. I think this striving to being mentally well and physically healthy is definitely much more important than perfection in any sense.
Mm. Then do you think that with a lot of, obviously, like the topic of mental health is just really complex and there's just so many layers to it. Do you think that there's like a bit of truth in that? Like everyone is trying to like strive for perfection and comparing themselves to like celebrities or just the people that are at the top, the 0.1%, not even the 1%. And if they can't reach that in their everyday lives, they feel like they're not good enough, and they're not comparing themselves to how they were yesterday. They keep comparing themselves to people who not born in Sydney or Perth, but born in a different situation, different family, different time. And do you think that's contributing at least some cases to mental health?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just the world we live in. It ignores the fact that every single person is unique. Every single person is born with certain strengths and weaknesses, and that's who they are as a person. Sure, environmentals, the factors, exacerbate or take away from that to a certain degree. But in reality, we are all unique, and that's something that we're taught from a young age. As soon as we're in the classroom and we're taught that, that kid got a better grade than me, so he's better, or, he got a sticker, he got a scratch and sniff sticker, and I didn't. This whole idea that, what we do determines who we are and how people should treat us is a wholly narcissistic trait. This idea of, superiority and inferiority is something that can be either nurtured within society or it's something that can be shunned. And us as Yungas and as Indigenous people all around the world, what we did when we taught our kids and we created this environment in which our kids were brought up in, was we taught them that narcissism is a real human trait. All of our stories talk about real human traits of jealousy and anger and love, this, that, and the other. And one of the stories is about the emu in the sky. So the dark emu is the emu that you can see in the Milky Way. So when you look up, you can see the shape of this emu.
Yeah.
And the story goes that in the time of the Quinjam, when the land was soft, that's when all the spirits were roaming around and they were trying to decide what would their role be within the world. And they went from animal to animal. They went from the kaka, the kookaburra, who said, I'm really good at singing, I can fly around really fast, but I can't go into the water, so I can't help out the yabbies in the dam. And the yabby said, yeah, we're pretty good at eating dirt and swimming around, but we can't climb up that tree and help the kookaburra. And it went on and on and on until there were only four. There was the Nyunga, the man, the kangaroo, the yonga, the waich, the emu, and the Nyinga, the echidna. And so there were these four, and they were deliberating. And all of a sudden, the emu jumped up and started running around really fast and jumping up and saying, look at me, look how good and fast I am. And I'm better than you, I'm better than you. I deserve the role of the carer of everything. And so the emu was running around and the other three said, no, this trait is bad. This trait is not one that we can have in a society. So there was an argument, there was a fight, and they chased this emu away. Yeah. And he jumped up and he landed in the sky. And so every time when our kids go to sleep, they're looking up and they see that emu and they're reminded that narcissism is a bad trait. Although it is human and it is natural, it's not one that we should give energy to or something that we should, applaud. Yeah. And I think that's the core of some of these problems in the world today is that, social media and, the productivity that is ingrained in our mind, this need to be productive, from a variety of factors. That's what creates this uncertainty in our minds. Like, what does this person think about me? Or could I be better in this situation? Or, oh, last week I said this, I should have said that. Rather than being firm in who they are as a unique person and embracing that, rather than striving to being better, just being content with who you are and loving that. Because there's not a lot of people loving who they are. There's a lot of people loving other people and trying to follow in their footsteps.
Mate, was that did you prepare that speech, or was that Man, that is
Nah,
awesome.
no, it was a good question. It's something I love chatting to my mates about,
Yeah,
especially sharing, these stories from my culture. My
yeah,
culture strived and lived as people. We were the most successful society in the world. We never had wars. We never
yeah,
had, people oppressed and left out, living in poverty.
yeah.
We never had that because we all had unique roles to play in society. And
Mm,
when we were taught that from a young age, and, this idea of narcissism, this, that, and the other, so many factors. I can't list them all now because
hmm.
there's all interlinked and they're all, if you know what I mean. But
Yeah,
I love sharing little snippets with my friends because I
yeah,
think as the most successful society in the world in history, and we're
yeah,
living in this time of change where people are aware of what's going on wrong with the world, there's not a lot of solutions around. You
yeah,
know, doing political science, I learned, all these political scientists saying democracy is dying, but they have no other alternatives to democracy. They can't even predict what it could be.
mm,
And so that's why I think as a young man, that I know about my culture and I know about, the way that we live today, which
yeah,
is still, in addition to how we were living in the past, just a contemporized version.
mm.
Um, I think we have something to share with the world, and that covers so many aspects of society.
Yeah. I think a lot of that obviously comes from your family and what they have passed down to you. I guess to share a little bit about my family history as well. Yeah, my family came over from Vietnam after the war. They went through the Vietnam War, and yeah, we've just started from start. And I've just been. I think that's really impacted me and how I've seen and how I've grown up. Obviously, everything else, the narcissism is something that is like a byproduct. They didn't teach me that, right? That's something from school, from social media, from everything else that
Yeah.
I've seen and spoken to. Well, they didn't have social media back then. They didn't have all of this. I guess there is the idea of status and of like living a better life, but obviously they've always just thought about family. Family is always number one in my culture,
Yeah.
and I think that's where it starts from there. I think for us, and yeah, I think there's just so much to unpack there. I think it's also like very important for you to also get things right as you are now, like currently at this age, because then you'll pass along these values, these stories, and these experiences onto the next generation. It's just I just got to be mindful because however you see it, whether I was fortunate or unfortunate to be with coming from a single parent household or coming from first generation family who doesn't have any doesn't have any property assets that have
Mm.
been here for generations and generations. They have to start from scratch. So there's just so many things that I think about for myself, but then when I have kids as well, like will they be very grateful for what they have? Will they be, I guess, for lack of a better word, spoiled, or they don't know
Mm.
what their father, what their grandfather, great grandfather, and mother, and everyone like down the line and in the past have gone through all those wars, gone through all of those all that poverty and hardships for you to get here. And I
Mm.
think, I think just perspective, right? Bringing it back to COVID-19, I think it's just like taking the time now just to think
Yeah.
of like, yeah, you're like a leaf that has like off a branch that has been growing for like millennia and years and years, years, years. So a
Yeah.
bit of like gratitude would like help, and I'm guilty of that sometimes as well. But it's something
Absolutely.
I'm working towards.
And I think that burden that you feel, it's a burden that we shouldn't have to feel. We should live in a world in which education, it's as good for, a student whose parents earn a bit less,
Mm.
students whose parents are the CEOs and whatnot. And that's the
Yeah,
problem. The government's still giving, millions of dollars of tax cuts to private schools. Why is that happening? It's just this perpetuation of inequality.
yeah,
And it's solvable. It's about putting funding into public schools. It's about improving healthcare opportunities, which are good in Australia. Um, you know, it's all about these things in which perpetuate inequality. We need to stand up as the young Australians now to say, no, this isn't okay. And this isn't a fair burden that we should feel. You know, I have to work extra hard to just pay for my students, my kids' private school fees because I want the best for them. But why should the best be for only those that can afford it?
Yeah.
And I think it's just sad that that's the state of the world, but it's inspiring to know that we have the capacity to change that. And it's just up to us to stand up and say, I'm not going to participate or capitulate to these things, if you know what I mean.
No, I do. I guess being a Sydney sider all my life, it's basically start a family, get your job, and then get a mortgage for your house. I don't know how much houses cost in Perth, but mate, you don't even know what the prices are here in Sydney. It's well over $1 million. So you'd be basically working for probably like a quarter, more than like a third of your life just to pay off that mortgage. And then from there, it's just, you know, there's got to be more out there, right? There's a lot of social things that you can do, and there's ways like live a little bit more frugally. Don't have to get that $1 million house, and put your efforts and like all of your, all of your thought and mind into bridging all these issues and social impact discussions.
And the money's there, you know, the money's there in the world to be distributed. The problem is that by the nature of, you know, neoliberalism is that those that are rich, they're the only ones that can get, you know, even more rich. And everyone else is just fighting over crumbs. So, you know, times have changed in the past, and we're in a time of change at the moment. This time of Corona has really allowed us to think about that, I think, because that treadmill of paying off that mortgage and that treadmill of, you know, getting the next job so that you can pay off at a faster rate, this, that, or the other, it is a fast treadmill and it's hard to jump off. So that's why we really got to think hard and long now to figure out what roles that you and I and everyone else has to play in that role.
Well, yeah, I do recognize that if there is any time to be living in history right now, it's probably right now, or maybe like 50 years from now. Like, we probably have a lot better than our ancestors, right? So I think it's a good time to be making best use of this time and, yeah, to make that change.
100%. Yeah, there'll be a few names left in the history books for sure over the next few decades.
Yeah.
This time, it's crazy.
Yeah, man. Awesome. Well, we did stray off topic a little bit.
Sorry. That was good.
That was a good chat. Yeah, mate. Did you want to talk about your NCP experience, mate? I am a little bit. I'm not sure how long or how much did you got out of the NCP before you had to be recalled back to Australia because of COVID. But I'm sure starting your scholarship was amazing, and yeah, tell me everything that happened.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. It was challenging, of course, because Indonesia is just worlds apart, you know, in terms of epistemologies and just the worldviews that the people on the street that you walk past every day that they hold, they're just worlds apart, you know. And I think as you touched on, you know, about everything going slow, that idea of jam karet means time is elastic. And it is, you know, time is just the construct that, you know, we've created. And how much, what you associate with that construct is up to you. And the reason why Indonesia is the least stressed place in the world is because what they associate with time is not stress, it's not productivity, it's not, you know, bettering themselves, you know, the opportunity cost of not doing something like we tend to do in Australia, like I tended to do a lot, you know, before I left. And it's detrimental to your well-being. Sure, it can be a good driver for motivation and whatnot, but that stress, that cortisol, is not good for your health. You know, stress being one of the biggest killers in the world, and you know, one of the biggest factors of all mental, you know, illnesses. If we can figure out ways that we can decrease this stress while not taking away from our productivity, you know, people won't be killing themselves at the rates that they do now, and people will be overall living better lives than they do at the moment. And that was a big thing I learned from Indonesia, because people are just so happy and they're so friendly to one another. Because I think one factor is like they don't see other people as their competitor. You know, someone that in the eyes of capitalism, it's you against the world. You know, how well you do is dependent on, you know, how productive you are or how you innovate better than the other person. It's a dog eat dog world. But over there, people are just happy to just be slack, just to hang around and be lazy. And they're happy. And we've been conditioned to think that we have to live a certain way. And there's factors that lead to that conditioning, like having to pay off a mortgage, like having to uphold, you know, generations of, you know, poverty and whatnot, and to do better, to honour them, and this, that, and the other. But ultimately, we have the power to control and create the environment that we live in and that our children will live in as well.
Yeah.
So learning from that, I thought, you know, how can I be a father or a grandfather in which I create an environment where kids can just be kids and they can grow at their own rates rather than growing at the rates that the schooling system imposes on you or university imposes on you, this, that, and the other, you know? So that was a big factor that I learned, because starting in Yogyakarta, which is, you know, well renowned as like the cultural capital of Indonesia. It's a beautiful place where people from all around Indonesia live. It's because it's got the lowest like minimum wage. So services and this, you know, everything like that is cheaper.
Yeah.
So it's the university town as well. So all the best students from all around Indonesia come from, you know, very humble places, come together just to study, and they're very grateful for studying. And it's a beautiful, beautiful atmosphere there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really enjoyed.
And what made you want to go to Indonesia and learn Indonesian, mate?
Oh well, I did it through school. So at school, yeah, I didn't really like school at all. So at school,
that's everyone.
Relationships with the teachers, they weren't ones of respect, and respect has to be reciprocal. And so that's what I found a lot. And I had one Indonesian teacher, Ibu Tay, who just had respect for us, and, you know, just love. And that's all you need with teachers. You know, that's all you need with any relationship, is just that reciprocity. And so for 10 years, year 5 to, you know, year 12, I did it all the way through there. And when I got to uni, I didn't know what I wanted to study, so I did it again for another 2 years.
Makes sense.
And then the opportunity to do the NCP popped up.
Yeah.
And at first, I looked at it and I was like, nah, I can't do this. You know, the criterion, I was like, can't write anything about this, can't write anything about that. I was eventually lucky enough to have a few opportunities come my way, and I thought, might as well give it a crack. And I thought continue it in Indonesia, obviously, learn a bit more about the various dialects, because there's a fair few and they're all very complicated. So it was good to be able to, you know, jump into the deep end in that regards.
Yeah. Wow.
But you, have you done any languages?
I did study Vietnamese because my parents didn't want me to lose that growing up. Even though, they can't speak English very well, so I've been speaking Vietnamese at home. But just learning it in a much more, because all of my vocabulary comes from them. So obviously there are some issues they didn't talk to me about, so I had to learn other, you know, just to improve my vocab. But I'm also learning a bit of Mandarin as well, because surprisingly, Vietnamese and Mandarin, they do cross over quite a lot, even though it is a Latin-based language, and Chinese is more like symbol-based.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've just been learning Vietnamese, and because of like the COVID situation, I'm actually pivoting to go to Vietnam, hopefully, when things clear up.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
yeah.
What's it like there at the moment, the situation?
In Vietnam?
Yeah.
They've dealt with it, I think, like one of the best in the world. They had 0 deaths, which is very impressive. And very few cases. And yeah, they're slowly opening up, mate. But obviously that's dependent on other countries and how they deal with it. Because obviously it's great to like deal with it with your own country, but if you want to open up, it depends on how Indonesia is doing, how China, how Japan, how all the countries around you are doing.
100%.
Yeah. But I was there actually before the lockdowns, in February.
Really?
Yeah,
How was it?
yeah. No, it was great. I was there actually for a program called the Asia Pacific Youth Exchange.
Oh, yeah, I've heard
And
about that.
yeah,
How can you tell me a bit more about it?
yeah, mate. Yeah, I was supposed to go on that program where we're supposed to go to a local village, to a rural area, and then we work on a project for about a couple of weeks, to find what the issues and the challenges are in the community. So, for example, in the past, I think one of the projects was the community didn't have light at night because there was like
Yep.
insufficient power. So one of the teams, they made light poles out of bamboo, like really massive bamboo sticks, and then the solar power light, because yeah, obviously didn't have a grid connected. So those are just some of the projects I was really excited to work on, and yeah, I just wanted to visit like the rural parts of Vietnam, because whenever I visit Vietnam, it's always in the city and always with my family. So I just wanted to see the other parts of my culture and people there as well. So, but unfortunately, I couldn't go. I did travel around a little bit, because COVID-19 had to cancel everything. But
Mm.
yeah, it was just amazing to see the progress and the stories that my mom told me when she was younger. Uh,
Yeah.
Literally running when the bombs were dropping. She was running from like on the streets and then ducking and like finding cover in like a church to like now. Yeah, and just so many things that she told me post war as well. It's Yeah, I have an interesting relationship with Vietnam, obviously, because my mom
Mm.
she's a refugee, and she
Yeah.
needed to escape, and like leave Vietnam for various reasons. But yeah, it's I think it's just interesting to come back to like in a sense my mother country, where my parents were from, and to learn that
Absolutely.
culture. Yeah, man.
Powerful.
Yeah, yeah.
Go back to put that all into context. I can't imagine that.
Nah, I can't. It just puts everything that I go through just like seem like it's nothing. So yeah, I just got to be grateful for everything she's done and everything she's been through, because she's still fighting, mate. She's still fighting and she hasn't stopped. So yeah, I gotta pay homage to that and keep fighting for myself and for the family.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
man. Yeah,
To, to throw in my 2 cents, apples and oranges, but yeah, me coming back recently and spending time with my nan and her telling me stories, going out to Creating, which is, my country out that way.
mm,
Um, on Balladon country, and her telling me different stories about her growing up. Like
mm,
my pop, he was one of the only Nyungas that actually owned a farm, and they owned this farm out in Creating, and they had this big well there.
mm,
And neighbouring farmers, they didn't want any Nyungas owning a farm. It's a really, really racist town. So all the way out, so it's 3 hours out of Perth to the east, and that was almost like the Wild West
yeah,
of Australia. Aboriginal people got hunted regularly,
yeah,
and being a black farmer was not something they wanted. So there was a well, and they poisoned it. They poisoned it, and they
jeez,
put salt and everything in it and ruined it. And then she's pointing out these wells and showing me them, and then how they built another one, and they built the other one. They put salt in it and ruined it again. And just hearing these stories about how she experienced racism and being slowly dispossessed. She pointed out to these farms, the neighbouring farms, and she said all of that was just forest. All of this was just huge trees
mm,
everywhere. Thinking about how sick the land looked. There's salt everywhere because of the way in which broadacre farming is destroyed.
yeah,
The land. Looking at that land and seeing how sick it was made me, sick to my stomach. Thinking about how it was in the past, and my nana telling me these stories. It's grounding.
mm,
It makes you grateful, and
mm,
it's energizing. I feel to be able to know how privileged we are to be where we are today, and that's only because of the sacrifices that the people that came before us made for us, and they continue to do so
yeah.
every day. We're so blessed to be where we are today. It's all thanks to them.
That's right, mate. Yeah, and yeah, just hearing your story as well, I think it does push us to do greater things And I think like the NCP was just a great example because you took full opportunity, and yeah, you've come a long way and you've learned a lot. And that opportunity has let you travel to Indonesia. You've met so many different people, heard definitely a lot of stories from their side of things and how they've grown up. So yeah, I think you can never stop learning. And yeah, it goes back to your point about education as well at the start. Hey, education, not just in school, but education in stories, education in life. You don't really get taught how to live in school. So you got to find that in other sources, through your family and friends and the people that you speak to.
Exactly. And I think because all humans were natural storytellers.
Yeah.
And what, comes from storytelling is everyone's unique perspective. And I think during the rise of, just Western thought, this idea that you can be objectively right or objectively wrong is this idea that is based in this narcissism. I think a lot of what drove that academic surge in, Western thought and whatnot was this idea that I want to be the next Isaac Newton. I want to be this. I want to be known as the person that came up with this idea. And at the base of all of that was this idea that you can be objectively right or wrong. But in recent years, everyone's coming full circle and realizing that everything is subjective and everything is a social construct that we can either attach ourselves to or dismiss. And what comes with storytelling is you telling the story from how you heard it and how you interpreted it, and then how you relate it. And so me telling the story, the creators of everything, I didn't tell the full story. I didn't, go into the details, but the way in which I used it was just to, portray this idea that narcissism is a trait that in this world at the moment, we're celebrating it. But we have all the power in the world to choose how our kids look at the stars, how they look at their parents, how they look at people around them, or what books they read, or what TV shows they watch, or what games they play. And we have complete control over that.
Yeah.
And that is the difference between people becoming, narcissistic sociopaths that, only intrinsic motivation is through, power and greed, rather than just love for one another and everyone's differences and trying to be the best person you can for those around you.
Yeah, it's from what I'm getting, it's like, don't just follow the path that is like prescribed to you and that everyone else is taking without really giving it a much thought. Like, have a think about that path. Is it actually a path that you want to take? And yeah, there's just so much to, like, when you look at an event, like if I'm standing on this side, you're standing on the other side, we're probably, they ask us later, what did we see? We're probably going to say roughly the same story, but then there's going to be differences, right? So it's never the same. It's never like one story for everything. So no, that's really great, mate. Yeah, mate, I wish I could talk to you for like forever, but no, it's been really good speaking to you, and I've learned a lot from just all your stories and your perspectives, mate. I think it's something very, very valuable, and yeah, we don't get a lot of chances to sit down and talk about these sort of things. For me, I do really much enjoy these conversations, but I think it's something that is very valuable because these conversations really do, at least if they're not going to change my mind like dramatically, but they tweak it a little bit, right? Like everything you told me, I'm going to take that into factor and take it into consideration and just tweak how I see things, how I think about things. So no, I really do appreciate your time, man. And yeah, all your insights.
Younger than you, yeah, yes. Brilliant idea you got going on, and it was a privilege to be able to yarn to you, and I'm sure we'll yarn again sometime soon because I really enjoyed it. And yeah, thank you for sharing your stories as well, especially some of that personal stuff. I really appreciate that. So thank you for your time.
Terima kasih, bro.
Sama-sama.
Sama-sama.